I didn't expect Christmas dinner to feel like a public trial. One moment, I was walking toward the table carrying my plate, trying to balance a smile, and the next, my stepmom's voice sliced through the room with a kind of calm cruelty that made the air feel sharp. "Move, Madison. That seat is for my real daughter," she said. The words landed like a hammer. Every fork paused mid-air. The clinking of glasses slowed. My stepdad froze, half chewing his food, his eyes flicking between us like he wasn't sure if he should intervene. My stepsister, Chloe, twirled a strand of her hair, pretending not to notice, though I could see the way her shoulders tightened. I stood there, hands on the back of the chair I'd claimed every Christmas since I was 10, tasting the strange metallic tang of embarrassment rising in my mouth. She didn't need to shove me. The words alone were enough to make me feel smaller than I had in years. I wanted to say something. Anything. But the room was quiet, everyone pretending that I didn't exist, or that what she said wasn't cruel. For a long moment, I considered retreating quietly. Maybe take the chair by the window, like my mom suggested in a hushed whisper. But as I straightened, a cold clarity settled inside me. Enough. Enough of pretending. Enough of shrinking. Enough of letting her decide my place at the table. I wish I could tell you this moment came out of nowhere. That my stepmom had snapped for the first time. But families don't break in a single instant. They crack slowly, in quiet ways that go unnoticed until the final fracture. I'd been living in those cracks for years. I was 14 when my mom remarried. She met Karen's father, Richard, during a whirlwind summer romance. For her, it probably felt like a fresh start, a way to leave behind the past, to build a new life. For me, it was a lesson in invisibility. I moved in with them that fall, hoping to make things work. I thought maybe the awkward tension would dissolve. Maybe we'd become a blended family who laughed together during holidays and didn't step on each other's nerves. I was wrong. Karen, her real daughter, was everything I wasn't allowed to be. Bright, confident, and smiling in a way that drew attention like a magnet. My stepmom treated her like a queen in a court I wasn't allowed to enter. And me. I became invisible, quiet, careful, too cautious to risk making anyone uncomfortable. My stepmom never yelled. She didn't need to. Her sharp comments, her raised eyebrows, her subtle smirks, those were the weapons she used. And everyone played along. My dad always shrugged when I tried to tell him, always saying, "She's just strict. Don't take it personally." My mom, distant and busy with work, offered little more than advice on patience and tolerance. So, I learned. I learned how to occupy as little space as possible. How to speak just enough to avoid being noticed. How to smile politely while pretending I didn't notice the small cuts, the comparisons, the favoritism. Holidays were the worst. Houses filled with decorations, laughter, and cheer that never extended to me. Every room felt colder than the winter outside. Still, I came back every year. Not for her, not for my stepmom. I came back for my mom. Because somewhere deep down, I believed that if I stayed long enough, tried hard enough, maybe she would finally see me. Not the version my stepmom painted, but me. This Christmas was supposed to be simple. A quiet dinner, modest gifts, smiles that didn't hurt. I even rehearsed polite phrases in the car on the drive over, hoping that if I performed just right, I could avoid drawing her attention. I should have recognized the tension the second I walked in. My stepmom's smile was too tight, my dad avoided looking at me, and Chloe sat at the table with a subtle smugness I hadn't noticed before. And then she spoke, and the floor seemed to drop beneath me. I didn't fall, but I might as well have. "Move, Madison. That seat is for my real daughter," Karen's mom said, her words flat, precise, deliberate. I straightened slowly, feeling the blood rush to my ears, tasting metal on my tongue. The word real burned hotter than the holiday candles, And I realized in that instant that she wasn't just pushing me from the chair. She was pushing me from the family, from belonging, from acknowledgement. My mom gasped softly, but it wasn't the gasp of a mother seeing her child hurt. It was the gasp of someone embarrassed that the tension had broken through her control. She whispered, "There's a chair by the window, honey." By the window. Away from the family, away from the conversation, away from recognition. I didn't move immediately. I wanted to stay, not for her, not for my stepmom, but for me. I wanted to plant my feet and let them see that I wasn't going to disappear. I didn't say anything aloud. I just said it quietly to myself. "You will regret this." It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was a quiet choice. A decision that I would no longer accept invisibility. I drove home that night with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. The Christmas lights blurred past my windshield in streaks of red and green. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply held the steering wheel with steady hands, thinking. It wasn't revenge I wanted. Not destruction. Not humiliation. I wanted clarity. I wanted accountability. At home, I turned on the kitchen light and opened my laptop. I began going through old household documents, bills, insurance records, payment statements. Everything my stepmom had organized, everything she'd handled in her usual quiet way, pretending she was keeping the family afloat. I wasn't looking for something dramatic. Nothing illegal. Just the patterns. The hidden truths that left my mom, and by extension, the family, vulnerable to control. By the time the clock hit midnight, I had compiled everything into a neat, organized folder. And my phone started buzzing. 8 missed calls. Then 12. Then 20. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The next morning, sunlight spilled across my bedroom floor, and my phone kept vibrating. I glanced at it. 30 missed calls. All from her, my stepmom. My dad, a few calls as well. And unknown numbers. I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I dressed, grabbed my folder, and headed to a local attorney specializing in family and financial matters. A professional who could help bring clarity without confrontation. The office was small, quiet, and warm. Ms. Granger, the attorney, greeted me like she knew I meant business before I even spoke. "I need help making sure my mother understands the truth," I said. "And my father. They need to see what's really happening." She flipped through the documents with careful attention. "None of this is illegal," she said, "but it is revealing. There are patterns here your stepmom might be hiding, or simply unaware of, that could affect your father's decisions." I nodded. Exactly. That was the point. We scheduled a meeting for later that day. A controlled, neutral environment where my dad could see the truth, without emotional chaos, without shouting. Another buzz. 45 missed calls. I ignored them all. I spent the morning at a cafe near the attorney's office, watching frost melt on the windows. For the first time in my life, I wasn't bracing for another blow. I wasn't imagining my stepmom's criticisms or calculating how to survive the next insult. I was preparing for truth. When my dad arrived, he looked tired but alert. His eyes held confusion, tinged with the worry I hadn't seen since I was a child. "Why didn't you answer last night?" he asked softly. "I needed to prepare," I said. "Not to attack her. Not to hurt anyone. Just to make sure the truth is clear." He nodded slowly, understanding without needing further explanation. We walked into the attorney's conference room together, the polished wood of the table gleaming under the fluorescent light. My dad's hands were folded tightly in front of him, his knuckles white. I placed the folder on the table and opened it, spreading the documents out carefully. There were bills, statements, insurance records, and payment logs, all organized chronologically, clearly showing patterns of household expenses, renovations, and financial decisions. Everything my stepmom had managed quietly, without alerting my dad, was there in black and white. His eyes widened as he traced the dates with a trembling finger. She didn't tell me," he whispered, his voice cracking. "No," I said simply. "She didn't. And I don't think she meant to deceive you, exactly. But she controlled the information. And it's left you, us, vulnerable." He leaned back, running his hands through his hair. I could see the weight of years of trust, of taking things at face value, finally colliding with reality. The attorney, Ms. Granger, spoke carefully. "Legally, nothing here is improper. But it clearly shows who has been making decisions and who's been left out of the loop. Your father deserves to know the truth." He nodded slowly, taking a deep breath. I trusted her. I thought she was just organizing things. I didn't interrupt. I let him see it. Let him absorb it. And as he looked at me, I realized he finally saw me. Not the quiet girl he thought would always step aside. Not the one he assumed would always be patient. He saw someone who had noticed, who had acted, who had chosen clarity over comfort. We left the office together, walking through the chilly afternoon streets. Frost clung to the tree branches like delicate glass ornaments, sparkling in the weak winter sun. My dad was quiet, staring at the ground, hands buried deep in his coat pockets. Finally, he spoke. "What happens now?" "That's up to you," I said. "But whatever you decide, it has to be based on the truth, not what she tells you or what you assume." He nodded slowly, and for the first time in years, I saw a flicker of resolve in his eyes. Not anger. Not panic. Just understanding. We didn't go straight home. We didn't confront her. Not yet. The calls kept coming, buzzing relentlessly on both our phones. I didn't answer. Neither did he. It was a quiet kind of revenge. A revelation through patience and clarity, not confrontation. Elaine began calling frantically around mid-afternoon. 47 missed calls. 52. 55. Each unanswered ring was a silent message. "I see what you're doing. You are not invisible anymore." Her texts followed the calls. "Lucas, please answer. I don't understand. Why are you doing this?" I ignored them all. My dad ignored them. Chloe, my stepsister, sent a single message through me. "I don't know what's happening." I didn't respond. Chloe wasn't involved. This was about truth, about clarity, about finally holding a mirror to the household without anyone manipulating perception. A few hours later, my dad and I returned home. The house smelled of pine and lingering holiday cookies. Elaine was standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, her posture rigid, her eyes darting between us. "Lucas. Madison, what is this?" she asked, her voice tight. My dad stepped forward for the first time that day. "Elaine, this isn't about anger. It's about understanding. I trusted you to handle things, but I wasn't aware of what had been happening. And now I am." Her expression faltered. For a moment, the control she wielded so effortlessly seemed to slip. I spoke next, calm but firm. "Mom and I needed clarity. That's all. I didn't want to fight, or accuse, or humiliate. But it was time someone explained the real picture to Dad." She opened her mouth, then closed it. Words failed her. And in that silence, I realized something. The power she had used to push me, to diminish me, relied on my silence. Take the silence away, and she had nothing left. We went through the documents slowly. My dad listened, absorbing each detail. Unpaid bills she had forgotten to mention, renovations done without informing him, insurance claims filed without his consent. Nothing criminal, but everything revealing a pattern of control and secrecy. His face shifted from confusion to disbelief, and finally to a quiet kind of resolve. I didn't realize, he whispered. I didn't know she had been controlling so much. I nodded. That's why it was important. Not to punish anyone, not to make anyone look bad. Just so you can see the truth and decide what to do with it. Elaine's lips pressed together in a thin line. For once, she couldn't manipulate the narrative. There was no audience for her control, only truth. That night, the house felt different. Quieter, but not empty. The air wasn't heavy with tension, it was heavy with the weight of acknowledgement. My dad didn't return to the living room with her. He stayed in his study, reviewing the documents again, finally taking ownership of what had been hidden from him. I stayed in my room, feeling a strange lightness bloom in my chest. Not triumph. Not revenge. Just relief. I had finally seen the moment when someone could step out of the cycle of silence and stillness and choose honesty instead. Elaine stopped calling. Not immediately, but gradually. Her control had dissolved. Without an audience, without silence to manipulate, she had no script to follow. The next day, my mom, who had been out of state, called after hearing what had happened. She listened quietly as I explained the sequence of events, the documents, the steps taken to ensure clarity. I didn't see it, she whispered. I never knew. You weren't blind, I said. You were just busy trusting. That's okay. But now you have the truth. She paused, thinking. I want to help him see things differently, she said softly. And I want things to be fair. For you too. It wasn't a perfect apology. It wasn't an instant reconciliation. But it was honesty. And for the first time in years, I felt like my mom recognized me as someone who mattered. Over the next few weeks, changes unfolded slowly. My dad began taking steps to regain control of his finances and household decisions. He and I had several long conversations about boundaries, fairness, and honesty. Elaine. She remained in the house, but the dynamic had shifted. She no longer had unquestioned authority. She had to negotiate, to explain, to be accountable. Chloe started noticing me, not because she wanted to, but because she had no choice. I had been seen. And in being seen, I had claimed a place in the family without screaming, without fighting, without needing to humiliate anyone. It was a quiet victory. But sometimes, quiet is louder than any argument. Christmas the following year felt different. My seat at the table was no longer contested. My dad smiled at me first, before anyone else. My mom joined in conversations with more attentiveness. Even Chloe seemed more aware of my presence. I didn't feel triumphant or vindictive. I felt calm. Like I belonged. Like my voice mattered. Families don't heal through silence or endurance. They heal when someone chooses to break the pattern of invisibility, to speak the truth, to hold others accountable without cruelty. For us, it began with one moment at a Christmas table. One insult. One clear choice, to step back, observe, and act with intention. And it ended with a family learning that belonging doesn't have to be forced. Respect doesn't have to be earned through fear. And truth. Truth can finally have a seat at the table. Moral lessons. This story reminds us that families don't always function perfectly, and sometimes the people we trust most can unintentionally, or even deliberately, overstep boundaries. The lesson is clear. You don't have to shrink yourself to keep the peace, and standing up for your truth doesn't make you disloyal. It makes you brave. If you feel unseen or undervalued, take careful, thoughtful steps to protect yourself. Speak up, and set boundaries. Healing and accountability often begin with one small, courageous action, and once you choose honesty and clarity, you give others the chance to do the same. Remember, your voice matters, and the right people will listen when you finally claim your seat at the table. If this story resonates with you, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more emotional family stories like this.